Hello, welcome to the third video in the EmonCMS series, where we have been trying to go from scratch to something, a setup that is a bit basic, but shows a bit of the power of EmonCMS and what you can do with it. I must give the caveat that we are doing basic things. I am only trying to show what the basic steps that can be done are, and you can take it from there. Anyway, quick one. I think I should show you certain things. Like, for example, if you look at this particular input, let me open it. Now, I have a feed that is logging the battery current. So this feed is always positive, but can also be negative. When I'm charging the battery, the feed is positive. It shows the amount of current that's going to the batteries. When I'm discharging the batteries, it shows a negative feed. So I decided to add this option here, allow negative, so that it can also display negative values, really. But that's about it. So just a quick pro tip. Other than that, all the feeds are now in. I have made sure that I put them into easy to understand sections. The feeds for battery are under the battery section. I have a solar section for just the basic things. That's the voltage, power, energy, and current. I have an inverter section for also the basics of the inverter, really. And I have a grid frequency, power, voltage, and energy section too for the grid. So now I just want to quickly show how you can get something done using one of the inbuilt EmonCMS apps, in quotes. They call them apps, just web apps, really, that can quickly get you to something to display without having to go through the hoops of building a dashboard. Now for this, I would simply do a simple, I will use this one, the solar generation compared to household consumption, or maybe a solar battery, depends on the kind of field you have. But let's do this for a test. So I will call this my solar demo for the web app. So you see, it brings us to this. So this is the end result, what it looks like anyway. But then it gives you these options where you can simply just choose this and it will display, arrange and display them the proper way as a web app. For also building using watts, that would be my load in watts. So I would go to the inverter section and choose load power. This is one that I have tabled in watts, load power. For PV generation in watts, I will choose PV power. I have a feed for that. Now for cumulative use in kilowatt hour, I would also go to load energy. The energy is in kilowatt hour, so that's cumulative use. Load energy today. Then cumulative solar generation in kilowatt hour, I have a feed for that, I think. Yes, which is PV energy today. Now I have one for cumulative grid imports in kilowatt hour. Do I have a feed for that? Yes, I have one for energy from the grid. And that is it. So I have the option of showing the power either in watts or in kilowatts, but I think I'll leave it as watts. Then I make the app public. So I click OK, and all these optional feeds. Boom. Then I launch the app. And there you have it. Now I have a simple web app for displaying my data. So it gives me, oh, this is fresh. So I think as time goes on, it will give you the data in hours, 6 hours, a day, per week, per month, and all those that you can do. This is the solar PV that is generating now. Exporting, this is what is going into the battery, basically, and this is what they use currently, this load at the present time. So this will show you. So it's a basic thing really, how to a quick one. Let's do another example. This time we will use the my solar battery app, which will include battery data. For this, let me call it my solar battery demo. Again, it's still the same basic idea. Here I will choose for the building consumption in watts, I will choose my load power. For the solar PV generation, I will choose my PV power. Then I can make it okay. For the battery charge in watts, that will be battery power going in. For battery discharge, this would also be the battery power, but negative, that I do not have. So I would need to create a feed that will show the battery power discharge, anything below zero that is discharging the battery below zero in watts. So that's one. Again, I also know that this is battery state of charge. I think I have one for battery SOC, which I have here. I select that, yes. Now, building consumption in kilowatt hour, not including battery, which is my load. My load does not include the battery consumption. Okay, that. Cumulative solar generation in kilowatt hour, which is the PV energy for today. Sorry, PV energy. Select that. Now, PV direct kilowatt hour feed, the amount of PV that is going into direct use versus what is going into the battery. For this, again, I would need to create a feed that shows that, a feed that essentially minuses what is coming in from the PV and what is going into the battery. For this, that's a second feed I need to create. For cumulative grading port in kilowatt hour, go to my grid section and my grid energy in. Battery charge in kilowatt hour, that is the battery energy in, energy that's going to the battery today. Battery discharge in kilowatt hour, that's the energy that's gone out of the battery today. I have a feed for that. Select that, okay. My battery 1000 kilowatt, this particular one is 10.25 kilowatt hour. Is the battery on the DC side? Yes, it is. Is it public? Yes, I'll make this public. So we have two feeds to create. The battery discharge feed, battery discharge power in watts, and the solar direct feed, that is the solar energy that is used directly in kilowatt hour. Okay. So in order to solve that particular issue, we'll go back to our inputs where we created the feeds and go to the applicable one, which is the battery power state. Remember I said we need this to be both positive and negative. So now we will create feeds that would properly reflect that. Now, the first we will do is delete that. Now, we have a feed pulling the battery power. Then we do this, allow positive, allow positive. Add that to it. So this will account for anything greater than zero, positive input. Then we will then log that. Remember, this is sequential. Processes are sequential. We will now create a new feed that will then reflect what it actually is. Allow log to feed, create new, the same battery section. Now, battery power state, which is the issue that we are dealing with here now. We will now create a battery underscore charge feed. battery underscore charge. Let's make it more explicit on underscore watts. This is what is going into the battery. The positive integer. We'll pull this every 10 seconds. Let's be greedy. So it's watts. And make that applicable here. Now, that's not where it stops. We'll now go back here again to the process. Now do a reset to 0, because this is sequential. If you add any other input to it after this, it will only continue to add. So you need to reset this to 0 to make sure that anything that comes after, it's a whole new process on its own. Reset to 0, we'll add that. Yeah. Now you will now add the original inputs again, plus input. The original input is battery power. Going through it carefully to choose the right input. Power state under node battery for input. So plus input, battery power state. Then we'll add the process for the negative values. Allow negative. Then we'll now log this to a feed by sum. So what this means is that this input, I will now create a new feed that only logs the negative values when it is discharging for it. So the same battery section for ease of use. Now I will make this battery discharge watts. Now I will save this and close. So back to our feeds. And I have two new feeds. I have a battery charge watts and I have a battery discharge watts. And if you look at this closely, you will see that only the battery, because the battery is currently charging. I have PV production going on in the daytime. I would have data here. And when the battery is discharging, this would be 0 and remain 0, but this would only display the negative values minus whatever is going out of the battery in watts. Likewise, if I desire to have this data in energy rates, I will only then add another input, another feed to the same one we edited that would now give me energy. But I don't need to do that because originally my inputs already have energy feeds anyway in kilowatt hour. Anyway, same model applies. I'm going to choose both inputs. I'm going to edit them and make them public at the same time. Now, because they are both watts, I have the luxury of also editing the unit section of it at the same time. It's the same value they have, otherwise it would have been wrong. But now I have battery charge watts and battery discharge watts for that. Now I will go back to my app, my solar battery demo. Now I can now provide the battery discharge feed, which is now battery discharge watts. Okay. So you see, I have solved that problem. Now I can also change, I think it's better I change this battery charge power in watts. Let me change it to the appropriate one, which I've made for it, which is now the battery charge watts. I saved that.